Welcome back. In this video we're going to be doing the retopology of the alien's head. And I'm going to be showing you another technique that I use, and it might be the simplest, maybe the laziest of all of the various techniques that I use. But in the cases where it works, it obviously works pretty well. So if you're following along, you're going to want to open up the file that you've saved from the last one. If you're just jumping in here for this video and you want to follow along, you can open up the flight suit in the video 5 folder. So in this one, as to ensure we don't overwrite, I'm going to go here to save as, and we're going to create a video 6. And I'm going to call this head retopo. Alright, so we're going to turn on our alien guy here. And let's enable the alien head layer. Disable that flight suit. And I think we can probably turn off these other layers here. So I'll be including this in the source files if necessary, but if you have the content installed, the technique that I'm going to be used for retopoing this is I'm going to be using a source geometry file on this. So I'm going to use one of the Modo mesh presets. So you can open that up with the F6 key. I'm just going to grab this base sculpt male, double click that adds it into the scene. And of course it's enormous. And we don't want that. So if we go to the snaps and precision palette and open up our absolute scaling, I can just go in here and I want it to scale from the bottom of the y-axis up and down. And I'm just going to put in here 6 ft for feet because I can do that. I want it to uniform scale from the longest axis, which would be his height. Just click uniform scale, and that's going to scale him down there. You can see he's a much more reasonable size, so our alien must be just slightly over 6 feet tall in real world units. So we can close that actual scaling now. And I'm just going to borrow this mesh and we're going to sort of manipulate it so it fits the size of the alien. So hit delete on that loop, delete the rest of that body, so we just have this head here. We're going to go into the right. I must have my constraints turned on still. I want to make sure I turn that off. So let's put that inside here. Scale him up. So that's the control spacebar again that I'm using to get that all in there. So now, if I could go into my deform tab and I get my soft drag, I can kind of just right click to set a size of that. And then you want to also make sure that the transparent option is enabled, so that way it'll go all the way through. We want to start sort of manipulating that. I'm going to hit my control / so I can kind of see that better. Move this eye line up a little bit so it's actually at the eye line. See about getting this face moved in here. So basically I'm just using the sculpt, or I'm kind of using this drag tool like a sculpting tool. Let's kind of move this ear into position. So for this particular game, the face isn't going to really have much articulation. So for our purposes, we can get away with this. Let me see if our symmetry is set up on this. Looks like we're going to be good in the symmetry department. So let's try and get this ear moved into a logical position. Alt X gets our local action center, so we can adjust this some. Maybe rotate that a little bit. And obviously, I don't think this ear is going to fit into that position there, so I think I'm going to modify this base mesh slightly. I'm going to grab these 3 polygons right here in the back of the ear, and then Shift B, bevel those out. And then I'm just going to drop that tool and then move that a little bit, and then try and move this top polygon here to sort of cover up that point on the ear. We'll need to scale them down and rotate them to kind of get it to look a little bit more pointy. And like I did in the other videos, this is a lower resolution head, so I'm kind of working at half the resolution that I intend to actually freeze the model at. So let's get this pushed in here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to get all of this geometry now to push outside of the background mesh that you're seeing back there, just so you don't see very much, if any at all, peeking through there. We want to get this all. I'm going to move this point here. Move that out. There we go. I think that's a better position for that. A little bit further up the ear. Push tool on that. Push. Alright, so I think we're getting a reasonable facsimile here. Sorry, as I'm concentrating on trying to get this form, you know, the ever important silhouette on this character. Trying to just focus on making sure I get as much coverage on here as possible. So here we can hit Shift Tab to go into the Catmull-Clark subdivisions, and like we did before, we can set our subdivision levels to 1. Set that to smooth all to kind of get an idea of what that will look like subdivided. So it looks at some point we lost our symmetry again, but we'll fix that again as we have done before. So it's just a little bit of tweaking. I mean, we haven't spent very long on this, so this one is not too bad. So he's kind of got like a stuck out forehead here, and then maybe this last point. See what we're doing here. think that looks pretty good. It's a pretty reasonable facsimile. So I'm going to double click on the center edge to select the entire loop. And vertex, set position, X, turn off symmetry, select loop, delete, delete, and then we're going to Alt W to set our action center at the origin, Shift V, click, and then now we have symmetry back, and our model is symmetrical again. All right, so I'm going to Shift Tab to turn off the subdivision surfaces, and I'm going to Shift D to turn in the subdivide. So now we're going to go down to the Catmull-Clark and subdivide that once. And then once we have the polygons that we want, we're going to jump into our topology so we can get an idea of what the background and foreground are looking like. And I'm going to turn on that smooth, set my offset on the constrained background here to 0, my iterations to 1. Now we're just going to click. You can see how that kind of gets sort of vacuum formed against that back position there. So let's push off the offset a little bit. And it's looking pretty good around the ear. You're getting a good silhouette. It's getting kind of the shape on the top of the head that he has those little bumps. So obviously if your face was going to be articulated or you had mouth and nose and eyes that needed to blink, you would be doing this differently. But for my purposes, this is going to work out just fine. So I'm going to jump back into the model tab here and I'm going to adjust some of these edges. So if I go here to the wireframe, I think I can just tweak these a little bit. Kind of get that lip silhouette a little bit better. Take this point down some and see what we're looking like. Could probably go through here and tweak this a little bit more. I think you know the drill already, but for this video I think this is pretty much done. So I'm going to hit Control S to save the head retopo, and we are almost through with the retop portion of the video. So in the next video I'm just going to show you a quick technique that I'm going to use for the hands and the glass dome, and then we'll be getting on to the UV mapping.